The Prophet Muhammad was then born in the town of Mecca. Mecca, if you refer to the map in the back here, Mecca is at this node here by the Red Sea, but it's not on the coast exactly, it's inland. Well, all of Saudi Arabia here, Arabia is like a tilted tableland where this is the side that's tilted up and the side in the Persian Gulf on the opposite side of the peninsula is tilted down. So the Persian Gulf is very shallow, and then as you get to the seashore, it just slowly rises and goes up for 1,000 miles as you cross Arabia, till you get over here, and then suddenly where it's tilted up and broken, because the Red Sea is part of the Great Rift Valley, there's this big escarpment there, and it's like a mountain wall about a mile high, and you just go down. Like when you come from Mecca to the city of Ta'if, which is at the top of the escarpment to the east, you come east of Mecca in the midst of volcanic hills, and then you see this great wall in front of you. And when you get to the wall, which is a mile-high mountain, it starts to the road goes in switchbacks, the highway there, and it just goes through at least 30 switchbacks as you go up the hill. So that was a geographical fact here. Mecca, being in Tihama, or the low place, was hot and arid and had no agriculture. So its background was as a town that had a dependence on trade and on pilgrimage that took place to that sacred enclosure. And in fact, Mecca was a place which was in a state of perpetual peace because it was not permissible to make war inside the sacred enclosure, which included the town of Mecca and some distance around it. And other than that, however, the tribe that inhabited Mecca was nevertheless often at war with its neighbors, and the tribes in Arabia were at war with each other. Unlike the situation in the life of Jesus Christ, who lived in the Roman Empire, going back and forth between the tetrarchy of Herod Antipas, that was a little bitty client state of the Roman Empire, and the province that was ruled by the Romans directly. Anyhow, he was living in the Roman Empire, which was a very large, organized state with rule of law and its own order and so forth. And so it wasn't the case of anarchy. Here, every little clan was independent. There were 200 tribes, but each of those tribes did not function as a state. Rather, the clans themselves functioned as that, and the tribe would be composed of a number of those. So it was a tribal situation, very clearly, that existed in Arabia, and that is a background fact that has to not be forgotten. Something else about the background is that, of course, one of the wrong-headed stereotypes about beginning of Islam is Islam is a Bedouin religion, and it represents Bedouinism, and it's the religion of the desert, and everything is black and white in it because of the desert, blah, blah, blah. No, it wasn't that. It's a religion of the settled people, and you have to remember that in Arabia, the nomads never were a majority of the population. Not then, not in recent times, and certainly not now when everybody is settled. But they never were a majority of the population, even in the country called Saudi Arabia, because the nomadic life just cannot sustain that much population. And the people who lived in the oases and planted crops constituted the majority of the population. When you can consider Yemen, which is entirely agricultural, that adds so much more to that situation, that it was definitely not nomadic. Even when nomadic is considered, you have to remember that nomadism in discourses about Islam is a continuation of an anti-Semitic stereotype, which has to do in European anti-Jewish anti-Semitism with the stereotype of the wandering Jew, which is like that the Jews are a population which has no rootedness in any place and no loyalty to any place, who wander from one country to another and live off of the fruits of the labor of the honest people of every other country and so on, and then so let's go get them. That sort of becomes the thing. After the Holocaust, we've largely gotten rid of that as regard to the Jews, but it has been transferred to some extent to explanations about Islam, because we have the idea that the nomads did not deserve the land that they lived on because they were just wandering around, so they weren't attached to any place. False. All the nomadic life is, all it means is that the area is too arid for you to stay in one place. So instead of agriculture, you have to move your animals around in the pastures, and those pastures would be areas defined that belong to you. And so all of Arabia was divided up into property, essentially, in a way. Now, that doesn't mean that it was accepted by everyone. So there was constant struggle going on over the rights to various pastures and so forth amongst the nomads themselves. Okay. The city of Mecca was kind of a mercantile republic, but it was a very rudimentary one. In some sense, to call it a republic and then make you think of ancient Athens or the ancient Roman Republic would give it too much institutional organization. It's more like the Hopi Indian villages and the organization of the Hopi Indian tribe in the pre-Islamic period. That is, there were various officials who carried on various duties, and those were usually hereditary officials. It was hereditary in their clan that one was the war chief, and he had the power to command in war, supposedly. Of course, actually, people would choose or not choose to obey or not obey. That would be their choice. But he would have that power to summon people in war. Otherwise, though, he had no power at all. And there was a kind of council of elders or senate that would meet to discuss things sometimes for the town of Mecca. But the clans were self-governing. There was no major organization of any kind in that place, and the same applied to all the other places in Arabia, pretty much. There was no history of institutional organization in Arabia except in Yemen, which was remote from the place where the Prophet lived. And that matters because it has a great effect and influence on Islamic history, and also some on the biography of the Prophet Muhammad.